I'm Nate, and I'm going to walk you through this frontier fort build that I put together. Here, we're showcasing our new grasslands, banks, and floor pieces combined with our forest collection and the rest of our cities collection. So let's dive in and take a look. All right, so this is a 3-foot by 2-foot build. I was originally going to end up doing 4 feet, but I realized we were trying to focus. The story focuses on kind of the front of this thing. I didn't need to finish out the fort as much as fun as that would have been. Focused on just the area where I think the players are going to be if this was an encounter. The base of this, we are using 6 terrain trays. So starting over here, we're using the new quaint pond terrain tray. Under here, you can't see it. There is a forest terrain tray, so the magnet's just something to hold on to. Over here, we're using our new dirt road terrain trays. So it's the winding straight, and this is the T intersection. And then in here, we have 2 of our packed dirt from Lowtown. One is the slum dirt, one is the regular dirt. So we have a little bit of variety inside the fort. In terms of story, when I was putting this together, the narrative I was thinking of, but of course you can come up with anything you want for any of your builds. What I was thinking was a frontier fort, like, far to the north, maybe a week's journey to the north, has gone silent, right? There's been they've lost all communication with them, sent a messenger, no one returned. So they're sending out the players to find out what has arrived. After a harrowing journey up to the north, the players can arrive along the path and find the fort here. It seems so far it is unscathed, unharmed. In fact, from a distance they can see folks. There are people on the walls and the towers. There are people out in the orchard. And we're using a combination of our townsfolk minis, our non-human townsfolk minis, and a couple of our castle defenders to populate this thing out. However, as the players get closer, they notice that none of the inhabitants are moving. Everyone is stock still like a statue. They have been paralyzed. They are sorcelled by some sort of fell magic. So players will have to figure it out. So now you will immediately sort of launch into kind of a mysterious, like, what's going on. Maybe they investigate the NPCs that are out here. Maybe they realize, well, we better get into the fort and figure out what's going on. And you can have a fun thing of, like, how the heck do you get into the fort? Because the doors are all sealed up. We got the walls, so they can kind of work their way in. Maybe they do a little investigating. Maybe they find the first hints of a couple of clues of maybe the source of this magic. Maybe there's something in the keep here. But at the right opportunity, the right dramatic time, somebody can spot something moving in the woods or hear some noise, and there are some marauders coming this way. There's let's say it's a band of hobgoblins. They've realized that the inhabitants of the keep are incapacitated, and they're taking the initiative to swoop in and claim this fort for themselves, because hobgoblins would love a new well-maintained fort like this. So then we get to transition to a combat encounter where the players can do the fun protecting against the horde thing, where the hordes are smashing against the walls, right? The players have to do these sort of defensible positions and figure out how to protect the fort and how do we reinforce the gate and the like. I love those sort of players are defending a thing, kind of changes up combat rather than just smack everybody till they're dead. They have an objective to sort of drive them off to protect the fort. Once we've gotten through the combat, then they can continue to investigate. And clues will lead them over here. By the pond, we have the Seal of Binding here, which is ancient Fey magics, and it has been tampered with, and with a little bit of arcana or whatnot, they can do something with the magic to reveal there is an illusion, and it's cloaking. It's cloaking this. We have the Fey. We have a Fey wellspring. Here, we're going to pop down into the pond. It's really cool. This was an idea from one of our viewers on Twitch. And then we're popping the sundial coin from Tudor Villages campaign in there. And so this is an ancient seal, sort of ancient Fey magic, and it has been tampered with. Someone in the fort was messing with it, and it has unleashed the curse that has frozen everybody. So the players have to sort of figure out how to break the curse. Maybe throw in the comments, what do you think? How would they break the curse? How would they free everybody? All right, so that's sort of the story I had in mind. Let's look at the techniques here for building. So over here, we are using the pond terrain tray, And instead of normally we've been using it with the grass banks because it kind of makes these nice sort of well-maintained pond that you would have in your park or your garden or the like. This time we're using the combination of the forest banks and swamp banks from Wildlands to make it feel a little more natural, a little more wild, a little more like a swamp, right? Maybe this was a bog or a marsh. This is the original place where they were getting water, from for the fort before they dug their well. And maybe that's started where they started getting in trouble. Maybe they were tainting the pond, and that sort of affected the seal. So using the Wildlands bits with one of our new city train trays. Over here, we're using, on either side of our road train trays, we're using the new grasslands, grass banks sculpts, which really give a really nice edge, right? These were designed to have a really kind of sort of clean, flowing edge. It just sort of meanders gently, much less wild than the Wildlands banks, so we can have a real a clean-looking road leading up here. One of the fun bits we did is because these banks are on a 4-inch base, 4-inch and 2-inch, versus the Wildlands ones are a little bigger. They're 6-inch and 3-inch. We're able to get this one terminate right up against the building here, and we have a nice 3-inch break. So we have just a little bit of overlap on either side of building where the banks feed right into the side of the building. Very pleasing, makes everything feel like it's built together. It's sort of built into the ground. I very much like that effect. And as you can see, where the grass banks, so the purpose of our new grass floors and banks was to create a new biome, something a little more calm and subdued than Wildlands, right? Our Wildlands pieces are very untamed and very dense with vegetation and details and very busy. We wanted to, with the grass floors and the grass banks, create something that was like just a green sward, as Eli would say, right? Just sort of a maintained, well sort of manicured area of green that would be perfect for your parks, for your lawn, for your garden, for your village green, or in this case, some sort of nice, simple roads going along. So there's some contrast in the sculpting of the plants, and they are because it's very simple. It's just dandelions and grass and stones, and the Wildlands bits, which have sticks and twigs and berries. And I know Eli had dozens of different plants that he sculpted in those Wildlands pieces. So they're slightly different sculpts, but as you can see in this build, everything flows together really nicely. And if you're worried about any of it, you can always just mask, right? Some of these places where they're joining, you can just mask it with a piece of scatter, right? If you're worried that your planters are going to have a riot because you have very few plants here and a lot of plants here, just mask some stuff with a couple of pieces of scatter that can kind of hide anything. And it also kind of helps integrate the simpler stuff, right? We're putting some of the Wildlands bits. We have the Mephit reeds and the standing stones and Wildlands rocks mixed in with this more the city's Tudor Villages pieces, right? The new flowers and flowering shrubs to just sort of integrate everything to feel like it's all playing together in one cohesive build. So we have a nice combination of Wildlands pieces going against the banks, or the new grass banks. And then over here, we're actually transitioning. These are all grass floors in here, right? So grass floors in this whole section. And the idea was, when they made the fort, they started carving out this land. They sort of pulled out all the trees, they pulled out all the rocks, they started cultivating the land, and they planted themselves an orchard, so they have a source of food. I guess they're just eating citrus, right? All they're eating are lemons and oranges. So they have their orchard here. And so we're utilizing the pole accessory holes in these the grass floors, right? So these guys are just pole accessory right into the floor. And then the other ones, we're using the mossy rock mounds here to pop those in. So we just some nice orderly rows of trees, make it feel like they've carved out, they're creating a little bit of order, they're settling the land here. And then a ladder. This was an idea Sil had in one of the early photo shoots, just putting a ladder up against the orange tree there, show that they're harvesting. In the midst, they got frozen, they got paralyzed in the midst of harvesting. And I feel like the contrast here of we have these big, dense, overgrown Wildlands trees, and then this sort of calm area that's carved out here that's just the little orchard. Helps tell a visual story and sort of the story of how this fort is founded and how they're surviving. And then working our way back, integrating a couple of the new shrubs with the Wildlands bits. Right back here, we've got wildland stump lumps on top of the new grass banks to kind of, once again, mix and match a little bit of wilderness with a little bit of civilization. I show we're on the outskirts of civilization, and we're using the pole accessory holes in these grass banks like crazy. We have a sign here. We have the flowers all over the place, and we even have the mephit reeds popped in over there. So using those pole accessory holes. Oh, even on this one, right on the banks, we're using this best fruit tree is in the pole accessory hole in the banks. And we have, one of the fun byproducts. So we froze. We have these NPCs out here, right, harvesting the orchard and manning the cart. So when the hobgoblins attack, we have some paralyzed NPCs that are now imperiled, right? So it creates some stakes. So if the players are in here, are they going to just leave these guys out for the slaughter, or are they going to heroically try and get them back into the fort in time before the hordes come in? So it helps give some dramatic tension to the players when you have a couple of NPCs in trouble. Do they want to be the heroes, or are they going to stay safely in the fort? Other techniques we're doing on the outside here, coming around the front of the fort, we are using, let's get wildlands floors right up against the new grasslands floors, like the area against the walls maybe is a little more well-maintained. They kind of pulled out all the boulders and the like as they were building the fort, and then the rest, it starts getting wild the further away from the fort you get. And you can see how nicely that all kind of flows together. And then the fort itself, this is built primarily all with Lowtown pieces with our rustic wood and our scaffolding. And the walls are the thing that sort of gets everybody's attention here. So let's take a look at how we did these walls. So this is a very simple technique you can do with our scaffolding pieces. So we've taken two of our 4-inch scaffolding platforms and popped a full-size pole accessory peg in the bottom of each, and then line those up with the corresponding hole, and then sandwich the whole thing closed. So that holds it together. Now it's almost 1 inch wide. It's pretty stable. It makes a nice thick wall. And then topping off on the top, this is just the narrow platform, taking a 4-inch railing, popping that in the sides like such. I threw a ladder on the back, so there's a way to access, right, using the biscuit ladder. So there's a way to access to get up to the wall. And then at the bottom, I put 2 more pegs. You don't need these. They're just a little extra stability. They don't actually fit in any of the holes. They're just sort of helping it from tipping forward or backwards or sliding too far off the wall. So something like that, boom, you pop it on, and you have yourself a nice little fort wall, something like that. And then if you want, you can biscuit this laterally with the other ones to hold them all together. So you can see this whole wall, is all biscuited together into one chunk. When we were doing our Lowtown campaign, I told everybody scaffolding is the most versatile collection we have in here. We don't even know all the things you'll be able to build with it, but it's a huge collection of planks. You can't go wrong. And sure enough, we continue to find really fun ways you can use the scaffolding. I love these pieces. And it's a good reminder that there's no right or wrong way to use the pieces, right? Use these however you need to tell your story, to make something cool. The players aren't going to throw down a flag and say, hey, wait a second, that's supposed to be a scaffolding dock plank or whatever. It's a fort wall. It looks really cool. Go have a fun adventure. Other techniques in here. So we're just using rustic wood. We get double highs over here. We're using the dungeon doors in the gate here because they felt a little more armored than the standard kind of barn doors that come with it, because all of our double doors are interchangeable. So it's kind of each has to give it some character. We're using the scaffolding railings around to kind of make the fortified watchtower look. Over here, same gag, just minus the roof. And I added the ivy climbing up the sides to just help make it feel like the wilderness is still, as much as they're settling the land, the wilderness is still trying to find a way to creep its way in. Inside the fort, we have little areas for supplies. And the key one is they've drilled their own well, right? So we're using the old well sculpt here. It's a really beautiful new sculpt that Michelle put together to show that they kind of drilled their own well. They have their own source of water, because the most important thing, right, is to have a safe source of water, as well as they're growing their food out in the orchard, and probably have some other food supplies. Maybe they're fishing the pond, hunting game in the woods, and the like. And then over here in this sort of center kind of keep building, one piece of Tudor, just use the new Oriole window from the Tudor collection to kind of just make this a little more fancy, kick out the front, give it some character, gives a little more playable space on the inside. It just looks like a building of importance. And then the little technique we did at the top is super fun. So taking this top layer off. So this is we've got a 2x4 floor with a 2x2 floor biscuited together to form an L. And I'm using this as the balcony, just biscuited on there. Oh, I filled these corners. I used the half height corner post there to just fill those corners because there was kind of a gap there. You don't need it, but it was just kind of filled it up, made it feel a little more complete. But then the fun part is, so this L gives us a perfect sort of square cutout there. I'm using, on the back part, this is the tower extensions to go on the dangle room with the wizard hat roof. We're using the transition piece that normally sits like this to transition up to the roof. Inverted that thing, popped it on there like this, so it'll perfectly fill that hole. So now when you put it like this, it fills up, we fill that gap perfectly with that inverted piece. And then because it is unpainted dwarvenite there, I just masked it with the step, something like that, to make it feel really cohesive. And now it is this nice little one solid piece watchtower area. And we popped the gargoyle biscuit insert above the door to make it look special. Lots of little visual clues to kind of tell people where the special stuff is. And I think those are all the key building techniques in this build. If we missed anything, you got a question about how we did something, throw it in the comments and we'll try and get you some answers there. But I think this would be a very fun encounter to run a story on. If you got a better idea for a different story you could run in here, let us know in the comments. So hopefully this has illustrated some of the many ways that our pieces can be combined together and will inspire some story ideas that you can use on your tabletop. If you want to learn more about our Cities collection, take a look at the playlist linked in the description below, or you can hop into our Discord where we have an amazing community who would love to talk terrain with you. If you enjoyed this content, give it a like, throw in a comment, and subscribe because it really does help us a lot. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate it. And now, it's back to the anvil!